Controversial plans to build luxury condos in Duluth's Woodland neighborhood moved forward tonight.
At City Hall, the Planning Commission approved rezoning the area off Woodland Avenue where the condos would be built. The plot of land sits across the road from Hartley Nature Center. There would be 2 buildings with 30 condos in each. Each condo is meant for purchase and in the $400,000 to $600,000 price range. At tonight's meeting, 7 people spoke in opposition, raising concerns about impacts to wildlife, trees, traffic, and more.
I'm concerned about the loss of green space and historic land. We've watched as the Woodland neighborhood has slowly had slices of green spaces developed and removed from public use.
Several people at the meeting also spoke in support of the project, including James Lewis, a local business owner whose grandfather, Gigi Hartley, helped provide the land where Hartley Park and Nature Center now sit. Lewis said the condos will provide a place for his parents, who currently live in Woodland, to move to and still enjoy the neighborhood in a retirement-friendly setting.
But if it goes through, then my mother and my father can move from 431 Hartley Place and retire in an easier community on the other side.
The commission's approval serves as a recommendation to Duluth City Council, which will make the ultimate call on rezoning. No word yet when the council will take up that plan.